Have you ever felt invisible in a room full of people? Like your presence didn't matter, your words carried no weight, and your efforts went unnoticed? That crushing feeling when someone who once valued you suddenly treats you like an afterthought. Today, I'm going to reveal something powerful. The art of making others realize your worth without saying a single word. This isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming your power through silence and strategic action. Welcome. If this is your first time here, I invite you to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can continue receiving content like this. Remember, you are stronger than you think and more capable than you imagine. Don't let the opinions and judgments of others cloud your vision of yourself. You are unique, valuable, and worthy of love and respect. Before we dive in, let me share a story that changed my perspective forever. There was once a master craftsman in ancient Greece who spent years perfecting his art, created the most beautiful pieces, but one particular patron constantly criticized his work, paid him poorly, and treated him with disdain. Instead of arguing or complaining, the craftsman simply stopped offering his services to this patron. He focused on clients who valued his work. Months later, the patron needed the craftsman desperately for an important commission, but the craftsman was fully booked with appreciative clients. The patron finally understood what he had lost, not through confrontation, but through absence. This story illustrates a profound Stoic principle. Your absence is sometimes more powerful than your presence. Marcus Aurelius taught us that we should not waste energy trying to convince others of our value. Instead, we should embody it so completely that its absence becomes unmistakable. Today, I'm going to walk you through 10 silent strategies that will transform how people perceive and treat you. These aren't manipulation tactics. They're principles, rooted in Stoic philosophy, psychological truth, and the understanding that true power doesn't need to announce itself. It simply is. If you watch this video until the end, you'll discover valuable lessons that will strengthen all your plans in the face of any moment in life. You'll learn not just how to make others regret undervaluing you, but how to build such unshakable self-worth that their opinion becomes irrelevant. Let's begin. Strategy number 1. Master the art of strategic silence. We live in a world obsessed with noise. Everyone wants to be heard, to explain themselves, to justify their actions. But here's what the ancient Stoics understood that most people today don't. Silence is not weakness. Silence is power in its purest form. When someone undervalues you, your first instinct might be to defend yourself, to list your accomplishments, to prove your worth. Resist this urge completely. Instead, embrace silence. Not the silence of defeat, but the silence of someone who knows their value so deeply that external validation becomes unnecessary. Think about it. When you constantly explain yourself, you're essentially asking for permission to be valuable. You're placing your worth in someone else's hands, allowing them to judge whether you measure up. But when you remain silent, something remarkable happens. The other person is forced to confront their own assumptions. That silence creates a vacuum, and in that vacuum, doubt begins to grow in their mind. Did I misjudge them? Why aren't they fighting for my attention anymore? What am I missing? Let me give you a practical example. Imagine a workplace scenario where your contributions are consistently overlooked during team meetings. Your ideas are dismissed or credited to others. The typical response would be to speak louder, to assert yourself more aggressively. But here's the strategic silence approach. Stop offering your best ideas in those meetings. Continue doing your job excellently, but reserve your insights. When asked directly, give minimal responses. Focus your creative energy elsewhere. What happens? Suddenly, the meetings become less productive. Problems that you used to solve silently now remain unsolved. The quality drops, and people begin to notice something is different, something is missing. They just can't quite put their finger on what. That's when your absence speaks louder than your presence ever did. Epictetus taught us that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason: to listen twice as much as we speak. This isn't just about being quiet, it's about strategic withdrawal of your energy, your ideas, your presence from spaces where they're not valued. When you stop fighting for recognition, something shifts. People start fighting for your attention. But here's the crucial part. This silence must come from genuine self-respect, not from passive-aggressive resentment. You're not punishing anyone. You're simply reallocating your resources to where they're appreciated. This distinction is everything. Resentment poisons you. Self-respect liberates you. Practice this starting today. In your next interaction with someone who undervalues you, say less, offer less, explain nothing. Watch carefully what happens. You'll be surprised how quickly people notice when a valuable resource quietly withdraws. Remember, a lion doesn't need to roar to prove it's a lion. Its presence, even in silence, commands respect. Your worth doesn't diminish because someone fails to see it. The sun doesn't stop shining because someone closes their blinds. Strategy number 2. Disappear without announcement. There's something deeply powerful about disappearing from someone's life without drama, explanation, or fanfare. Not ghosting out of immaturity, but strategic withdrawal born from self-respect. This is perhaps the most misunderstood yet effective strategy in the entire Stoic toolkit. Most people, when they feel undervalued, make their exit a production. They announce their departure, list their grievances, demand acknowledgement of the injustice. They want the other person to know exactly why they're leaving and exactly what they're losing. But this approach has a fatal flaw. It still centers the other person. It still seeks their validation, even if that validation is just acknowledgement of wrongdoing. True power lies in simply fading away. No explanations, no accusations, no final speeches. Just gradual, deliberate, quiet absence. Why is this so effective? Because humans are wired to notice absence more acutely than presence. We take for granted what's always there. We only recognize value when it vanishes. When you disappear without warning, without explanation, it creates a profound psychological impact. The person is left with questions that you're no longer there to answer. Where did they go? Why did they leave? Did I do something wrong? Why didn't they fight for this relationship? These questions haunt them far more than any argument ever could. Your silence becomes their loudest reminder of what they lost. Let me paint a picture. You have a friend who consistently cancels plans with you, shows up late, doesn't return your calls, and generally treats your time as worthless. You've addressed it before, but nothing changed. Here's what strategic disappearance looks like. You simply stop reaching out. You don't send a message explaining why. You don't post about toxic friendships on social media. You don't tell mutual friends about your decision. You just quietly reallocate your time and energy to relationships that reciprocate your effort. When this person finally notices your absence and reaches out, you're cordial but distant. Brief responses, no long explanations, no emotional downloads, just polite, cool, minimal engagement. This drives home the reality of your absence more powerfully than any confrontation ever could. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." You don't need to hurt them back. You don't need to make them understand. You simply need to redirect your valuable presence away from where it's not treasured and toward where it is. But let's be clear about something important. This isn't about playing games or manipulation. This is about honest self-preservation. You're not pretending to be unavailable while secretly hoping they'll chase you. You're genuinely reallocating your limited time, energy, and emotional resources to better investments. There's a difference between strategic withdrawal and attention-seeking behavior. One comes from strength, the other from neediness. The key is authenticity. When you disappear, it must be real. You must genuinely move forward with your life, pursue new connections, invest in yourself, and create a life so fulfilling that their lack of appreciation becomes irrelevant. That's when your absence transforms from a tactic into a lifestyle upgrade. Think about it this way. Your presence in someone's life is a gift. Not everyone deserves gifts, and some people only recognize the value of a gift after it's been taken away. You're not being cruel by leaving. You're being wise by investing in relationships that honor your worth. Start today. Identify one person who consistently undervalues you. Begin the gradual process of fading from their orbit. Not with anger, not with announcements, but with quiet, dignified redirection of your energy elsewhere. Watch what happens when they finally notice you're gone. Strategy number 3. Succeed loudly where they can see. Here's where silence and visibility intersect in a beautiful paradox. While you're strategically silent about your worth, you become deliberately visible about your success. You don't explain your value in words, you demonstrate it through undeniable achievement. This is not about showing off or seeking validation. It's about creating a reality so impressive that it speaks for itself, loudly and clearly, without you having to say a word. The Stoics understood that the best argument is not made with words, but with results. When someone undervalues you, they've essentially made a bet against you. They've decided you're not as capable, talented, or important as you might think. The most devastating response is not to argue with their assessment, but to prove it wrong through achievement so obvious that even they cannot deny it. Imagine this scenario. You're in a company where your contributions are overlooked. You're passed over for promotions. Your ideas are dismissed. Instead of complaining or explaining, you do something radical. You double down on excellence. You take on projects others avoid. You develop skills they don't have. You produce results that cannot be ignored or attributed to anyone else. Then, when opportunities arise, whether inside that company or elsewhere, you're ready. When you receive recognition, awards, promotions, or better offers, you accept them with quiet grace. No, I told you so. No need to point out who failed to see your potential. Your success does all the talking. This is particularly powerful in the age of social media, but it must be handled delicately. The key is to share your achievements, not to make anyone feel bad, but as natural documentation of your journey. When you get that degree, close that deal, launch that business, reach that milestone, share it. Not with spite, but with genuine pride and gratitude. The person who undervalued you will see it. Trust me, they're watching. And when they do, something profound happens in their mind. They realize they had access to someone valuable and lost it. They understand they dismissed someone who went on to achieve exactly what you said you would, or perhaps even more. Seneca wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a person perfected without trials." Let their undervaluation of you be the friction that polishes you into something brilliant. Use their doubt as fuel for your transformation. But here's the critical element. Your success must be genuine, not performed. You're not succeeding to prove something to them. You're succeeding because you owe it to yourself. The fact that they witness it is simply a bonus, a natural consequence of you living visibly and authentically. This strategy requires patience. Real success, the kind that speaks loudest, takes time to build. You won't see results overnight, but if you commit to this path, focusing not on revenge, but on genuine self-improvement and achievement, you'll create something undeniable. Think long-term. 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, where do you want to be? What do you want to have accomplished? Set those goals not because of who doubted you, but because you deserve to reach your full potential. Then work toward them with relentless consistency. When you finally achieve what they said you couldn't, when you become who they said you'd never be, when you reach heights they assumed were beyond you, your silence about your worth will be deafening. Your results will speak in a voice so loud that their earlier dismissal will echo back to them as the mistake it always was. This is not cruelty. This is justice. Not the justice of punishment, but the justice of truth revealed. You're simply allowing reality to correct their misperception. And there's something deeply satisfying about that, far more satisfying than any argument ever provided. Strategy number 4. Become unavailable to those who took you for granted. Availability is a form of currency. When you're always available, always responsive, always ready to help, accommodate, or engage, you inadvertently communicate that your time has little value. Paradoxically, the more available you make yourself, the less people appreciate your presence. This is basic economics applied to relationships. Scarcity creates value. Abundance diminishes it. When someone can always reach you, always count on you to drop everything, always rely on your flexibility, they stop seeing your availability as the gift it is. They begin seeing it as an entitlement. The strategic withdrawal of availability is a powerful correction to this dynamic. Not playing hard to get, but genuinely reprioritizing your time and energy based on reciprocity and respect. Let me be clear what this looks like in practice. Someone who undervalued you used to be able to text you at any hour and get an immediate response. Now, you respond when it's convenient for you, which might be hours or even a day later. Not because you're trying to punish them, but because you're genuinely busy building a life that fulfills you. They used to be able to make last-minute plans, cancel on you without consequence, or expect you to accommodate their schedule while never accommodating yours. Now you have plans, real plans that you don't cancel. Your calendar is full because you filled it with people and activities that value your time. They used to have access to your emotional labor, your advice, your listening ear whenever they needed it. Now you're selective about where you invest that emotional energy. You've realized that emotional labor is labor, and you don't work for free anymore, especially not for people who don't appreciate the service. This transformation doesn't require an announcement. You don't send a message saying, "I'm going to be less available now because you didn't appreciate me." That would defeat the entire purpose. Instead, you simply become less available. When they notice and ask about it, you're honest but brief. "I've been really busy lately," or "I have a lot going on right now." Both statements are true. You are busy building a better life. Epictetus taught that we should set limits on our availability, even to ourselves, redirecting our attention only to what truly matters. When you apply this principle to relationships, something magical happens. The people who truly value you will respect your boundaries and work to accommodate them. The people who only valued your convenience will fade away. Both outcomes are victories. But here's where many people struggle. You must actually fill your life with meaningful activity. You can't just pretend to be busy while secretly sitting around hoping they'll notice your absence. That's not strategy. That's self-deception. You must genuinely invest in yourself. New skills, new relationships, new experiences, new goals. Become so engaged in your own growth that your previous availability becomes impossible to maintain. There's something profoundly liberating about this shift. You stop living on standby mode, waiting for others to need you as a way of feeling valuable. Instead, you construct a life so rich and full that others must schedule time with you, must earn your attention, must demonstrate that they value what you offer. And here's the beautiful irony. When you become genuinely less available, you often become more desirable, People suddenly want more of your time precisely because they can have less of it. This isn't manipulation, it's human nature. We want what we can't easily have. We value what we might lose. The person who took you for granted will notice this shift. They'll feel it in the delayed responses, the declined invitations, the sense that you've moved on to something more important. And that feeling, that realization that they no longer have easy access to you, will make them reconsider your value in a way no conversation ever could. Start this today. Look at your schedule. How much of it is devoted to people who don't reciprocate? How much of your emotional energy goes to relationships that drain rather than replenish you? Begin the process of reclamation. Fill those spaces with self-investment, courses, hobbies, genuine friendships, personal projects, health, and growth. Watch what happens when you're no longer the person who's always there. Watch how the dynamic shifts when your time becomes precious because you've made it so. Strategy number 5. Let your absence create problems they can't solve. This strategy is perhaps the most satisfying because it requires no effort on your part beyond simply not solving problems that aren't yours to solve. Many of us, especially those with caretaker personalities or high competence, have a habit of smoothing things over, fixing issues, preventing disasters, and generally making life easier for everyone around us. Often, we do this invisibly, and our contribution goes unnoticed precisely because we're so good at preventing problems before they become obvious. When someone undervalues you, one of the most powerful demonstrations of your worth is to stop doing these invisible tasks. Not sabotaging anything, not deliberately creating problems, but simply no longer preventing them. Let natural consequences unfold without your intervention. Here's how this manifests in real situations. Maybe you're in a relationship where you always remember the important dates, manage the social calendar, maintain family connections, and keep the household running smoothly. Your partner has come to expect this seamless operation without recognizing the labor behind it. What happens when you stop? Suddenly, birthday calls don't get made, social engagements are missed, important appointments are forgotten, the household runs less smoothly, nothing catastrophic, but 1,000 small things that you handled invisibly now become visible through their absence. Your partner begins to understand, often for the first time, exactly how much you were doing. Or perhaps you're in a workplace where you're the person who always catches errors, smooths over communication problems, mentors newer employees, or takes on tasks no one else wants. You do this competently and quietly, so much so that leadership doesn't fully appreciate your contribution. What happens when you stop? You continue doing your core job responsibilities excellently, but you stop going above and beyond for people who don't recognize it. You stop catching other people's mistakes. You stop taking on extra projects. You stop being the social glue that keeps the team functioning. Slowly, cracks appear. Projects don't run as smoothly. Communication breaks down, quality suffers, and the common denominator is your withdrawal from these unrewarded efforts. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." But being a good person doesn't mean being a doormat. It doesn't mean solving everyone's problems while your own contributions go unrecognized. Sometimes the most instructive thing you can do is step back and let people experience the consequences of undervaluing a resource they took for granted. This strategy is particularly effective because it's completely fair. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not sabotaging anyone. You're simply allocating your effort proportionally to the recognition and reciprocity you receive. That's not vindictive, that's sustainable. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and you cannot continue exceptional effort in the face of consistent indifference. The key is to implement this without bitterness. You're not secretly hoping they'll fail. You're simply accepting that if they don't value your contribution, you're free to redirect it elsewhere. Maybe that means doing the bare minimum at a job that doesn't appreciate you while building a side business that excites you. Maybe that means stopping emotional labor in a friendship that only takes and never gives. Maybe that means letting family dynamics play out without your constant mediation. When problems arise that you would have previously prevented, and people come to you for solutions, you have options. You can help, but now on different terms, with clear boundaries, with explicit acknowledgement of your contribution, perhaps even with compensation if appropriate. Or you can simply say, honestly, I don't have the capacity for that right now. Both responses recalibrate the relationship. What you'll often find is that this creates a crisis point, a moment where the person or organization must choose: continue undervaluing you and suffer the consequences, or recognize your worth and treat you accordingly. Either outcome benefits you. If they continue undervaluing you, you've learned something important and can act on that information. If they recognize your worth, the relationship has improved to sustainable terms. This is not about being petty or keeping score. This is about honest, self-respecting reciprocity. The Stoics teach us to focus our energy where it can have meaningful impact. If your exceptional efforts in a particular relationship or situation consistently go unrecognized, that's not where your energy can have meaningful impact. It's that simple. So today, identify one area where you've been invisibly preventing problems for people who don't appreciate it. Stop. Not with anger, not with announcements, just stop. Redirect that considerable skill and effort towards something or someone that values it. Watch what happens when your absence creates a void that others cannot fill. Strategy number 6. Elevate your standards so they no longer qualify. One of the most profound shifts you can make is raising your standards so dramatically that the person who undervalued you simply no longer meets them. This isn't about revenge or superiority. It's about genuine growth that naturally makes certain people and situations incompatible with who you're becoming. When someone doesn't value you, it's often because they're operating at a level where they can't recognize your worth. Maybe they lack the emotional intelligence to appreciate your depth. Maybe they're so focused on superficial metrics that they miss your substance. Maybe their own insecurities make them diminish others to feel better about themselves. Whatever the reason, here's the truth. You cannot control their perception, but you can absolutely control your standards. Imagine a scenario where you've been in a relationship, romantic, professional, or otherwise, where you've consistently been treated as an option rather than a priority. You've accommodated their schedule, accepted less than you deserve, and made excuses for behavior you know isn't acceptable. Then something shifts. You decide, with clarity and conviction, that you deserve better. This decision transforms everything. You begin setting and maintaining boundaries. You stop accepting behavior that disrespects your time, energy, or dignity. You invest in yourself, therapy, education, fitness, new experiences, deeper friendships. You develop yourself so completely that your standards naturally rise. Not because you're trying to exclude anyone, but because you now recognize what quality looks, feels, and sounds like in relationships. Now, when that person comes back into your orbit, maybe wanting to reconnect, maybe noticing your transformation, they encounter a version of you that simply won't accept what you once tolerated. They haven't necessarily changed, but you have, dramatically. And now, they don't qualify for space in your life under your new standards. This is incredibly powerful because it's not personal. You're not rejecting them specifically. They're simply not compatible with who you've become. It's like outgrowing clothes. The shirt didn't change, you did. And trying to force yourself back into that shirt would be uncomfortable and inappropriate. Epictetus taught that no one is free who is not master of himself. Part of mastering yourself is determining your standards and refusing to compromise them for anyone. This isn't rigidity, it's self-respect. When you know your worth, you stop negotiating with people who don't see it. Let me give you concrete examples of what elevated standards look like. In relationships, you no longer accept inconsistency. Either someone is genuinely interested and demonstrates it through consistent action, or they're not, and you move on without drama. You don't chase, convince, or settle for breadcrumbs of attention. In professional settings, you no longer accept positions that undervalue your skills. You pursue opportunities that recognize your contribution with appropriate compensation, respect, and growth potential. You're willing to walk away from jobs that take advantage of your work ethic without rewarding it. In friendships, you no longer maintain one-sided relationships where you do all the initiating, listening, and supporting. You invest in reciprocal connections where effort flows both ways. Friends who only show up when they need something are gently but firmly excluded from your inner circle. These elevated standards serve as a filter. They automatically screen out people and situations that would have drained you in the past. And here's the beautiful part. You don't have to explain these standards to anyone. You don't need to justify why you deserve respect, reciprocity, or recognition. You simply embody these standards through your choices. When the person who undervalued you realizes you've moved on to a level they can't reach, something profound happens in their consciousness. They see you thriving in relationships, opportunities, or circumstances that are clearly superior to what you had with them. They understand, perhaps for the first time, that you weren't desperate for their validation. You were offering them something valuable, and they missed their chance to appreciate it. This realization hits differently than any argument ever could. It's not something you told them. It's something they discovered through observation. And that makes it undeniable. Start this transformation today. Write down your standards in relationships, work, and life. Be honest about where you've been compromising those standards. Then commit, truly commit, to honoring them going forward. Watch how your life transforms when you stop accepting less than you deserve. The person who undervalued you will either rise to meet your new standards, proving that growth is possible, or they'll remain where they are, proving that moving forward without them was the right decision. Either way, you win. Strategy number 7. Build a life so fulfilling that their regret becomes irrelevant. This is perhaps the ultimate strategy because it transcends the entire framework of making others regret undervaluing you. When you build a life so rich, fulfilling, and aligned with your values that their opinion of you becomes genuinely irrelevant, you've achieved something far more valuable than revenge. You've achieved freedom. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In other words, don't lower yourself to the level of those who wronged you. Instead, rise so high that the entire interaction becomes a distant memory, insignificant compared to the life you've built. Here's what this looks like in practice. You stop checking if they're watching your success. You stop crafting posts or updates with them in mind. You stop having imaginary conversations where you tell them off or prove them wrong. You simply live, fully, authentically, joyfully. And in that living, they become irrelevant. This doesn't happen overnight. It's the result of consistent, deliberate choices to invest in what truly matters to you. Maybe that's career advancement that genuinely excites you, not just impresses others. Maybe it's creative pursuits that feed your soul. Maybe it's relationships that reciprocate your energy. Maybe it's travel, learning, service, family, or spiritual growth. Whatever lights you up, whatever aligns with your deepest values, that's where you pour your energy. As you build this life, something miraculous happens. The sting of being undervalued fades, not because you've become numb or indifferent, but because you've become so fulfilled that one person's failure to recognize your worth doesn't define your experience. You have abundant evidence from life itself that you are valuable, capable, and worthy. I want to share something important here. This strategy isn't about pretending the hurt didn't happen. It's not toxic positivity or spiritual bypassing. You felt the pain of being undervalued, and that pain was real and valid. This strategy is about metabolizing that pain into fuel for transformation. It's about using that experience as a catalyst for building something beautiful. Think of it like this. Imagine being so happy, so content, so engaged in your life that if the person who undervalued you called tomorrow to apologize, your reaction would be mild, not indifferent exactly, but not desperate either. You'd accept their apology with grace, perhaps even forgive, but you wouldn't need it to feel whole. You're already whole. Their recognition would be nice, but unnecessary. That's freedom, that's the goal. Seneca wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a person perfected without trials. Let their undervaluation of you be the friction that polished you into your best self. Let it be the trial that revealed your strength. Let it be the push you needed to stop seeking external validation and start building internal worth." Here's your practical implementation. Make a list of 10 things that would make your life feel full and meaningful, regardless of anyone else's opinion. These should be intrinsic goals, things that fulfill you for their own sake, not because they impress anyone. Maybe it's learning a language, running a marathon, writing a book, mastering a skill, deepening your spiritual practice, or creating financial independence. Now commit to making progress on these goals, not someday, not when you feel like it, but now. Schedule them, prioritize them, protect the time you've dedicated to them as you check items off. This list, as you grow in these directions, you'll feel your sense of self-worth becoming less dependent on any single person's perception. And here's the magic. When you're genuinely fulfilled, you become magnetic. People sense that fullness and are drawn to it. Ironically, the person who undervalued you may try to come back into your life, drawn by the very transformation their rejection catalyzed. How you handle that is up to you, but you'll handle it from a position of strength, not need. This strategy requires patience and faith. There will be days when the hurt resurfaces, when you're tempted to check if they're noticing your growth, when you want them to acknowledge what they lost. In those moments, gently redirect yourself back to your own life. Your fulfillment isn't on their timeline, it's on yours. Build so beautiful a life that when you look back years from now, you'll actually be grateful they undervalued you. Because if they hadn't, you might never have been pushed to become who you were always meant to be. Strategy number 8. Demonstrate indifference with kindness. This is perhaps the most sophisticated and psychologically powerful strategy, treating someone who undervalued you with polite indifference wrapped in kindness. Not coldness, not hostility, but a pleasant, cordial distance that communicates clearly, "I wish you well, but you no longer have a meaningful place in my life." This approach is devastating precisely because it's not dramatic. There's nothing for them to push against, no anger for them to deflect, no harsh words they can use to paint you as the villain. Just calm, friendly, unmistakable indifference. And that indifference, delivered kindly, hits harder than any outburst ever could. Let me explain why this works so well psychologically. When you're angry with someone, when you lash out or cut them off dramatically, there's a strange way in which they still matter to you. Your emotional response confirms that they still have power over your feelings. They can take some comfort in that. At least I affected them. At least I matter enough to generate that reaction. But indifference, polite, kind indifference that treats them exactly like you'd treat any casual acquaintance, that communicates something far more final. You don't have the power to hurt me anymore. You don't have the power to anger me. You simply don't have power over me at all. Here's what this looks like in practice. You run into them at a social event. Instead of avoiding them or confronting them, you smile warmly, engage in brief, pleasant small talk about nothing of consequence, and then excuse yourself to talk to someone else. You're friendly, but not interested, polite, but not engaged. There's no history in your tone, no subtext, no lingering resentment, just the kind of mild pleasantness you'd extend to anyone. If they reach out to you via text or call, you respond, but your responses are brief, friendly, and surface level. Hope. You're doing well. That's great, congratulations. No detail about your life, no questions about theirs that would indicate genuine interest, no opportunity for deeper connection. You're not ignoring them, you're just not prioritizing them. If they try to bring up the past or address what happened between you, you respond with gentle, non-committal acknowledgement. I appreciate you bringing that up. I've moved past it and hope you have too. I wish you all the best. Then you redirect to something neutral or politely exit the conversation. This strategy is rooted in Stoic principles. Epictetus taught that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. By choosing a reaction of calm indifference rather than anger or hurt, you demonstrate that you've processed what happened and moved beyond it. You're not stuck in the past. You've integrated the experience and evolved. But here's the key. This indifference must be genuine, not performed. You can't fake this. Effectively, if you're secretly seething while pretending to be indifferent, it will show. If you're performing kindness while internally counting every hurt, it will leak through. This strategy only works when you've done the internal work to actually arrive at a place of genuine indifference. How do you get there? Through all the strategies we've already discussed. Building a fulfilling life, elevating your standards, focusing on people who value you, achieving success on your own terms. When you've done that work, indifference becomes natural. You're not pretending they don't matter. They genuinely don't matter much anymore. They're just another person from your past, neither vilified nor idealized, just past. The psychological impact on them is profound. They can't fight your indifference. They can't argue with your kindness. They can't paint you as bitter or vindictive. All they can do is sit with the realization that they've become irrelevant to you. And for many people, especially those whose egos enjoyed having power over your emotions, this is the most unsettling outcome possible. They may try to provoke a reaction, to break through that polite barrier and make you engage emotionally. They might bring up sensitive topics, try to make you jealous, or even criticize you to get a rise. Your response? The same kind indifference. Interesting perspective, take care, and you disengage. This isn't about being fake or suppressing your emotions. It's about having processed your emotions privately with trusted friends or a therapist, and arriving on the other side where this person simply doesn't have emotional real estate in your inner world anymore. When you see them, you feel not much. Maybe a slight twinge of old memory, but nothing strong, nothing controlling. Start practicing this today. If the person who undervalued you tries to engage with you, resist the urge to be cold or harsh. Instead, be pleasant, brief, and clearly disengaged. Watch how this communicates your evolution far more effectively than anger ever could. Remember, the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And indifference delivered with kindness is the clearest signal possible that someone has lost their place in your emotional landscape. Strategy number 9. Thrive in areas where they said you'd fail. There's something particularly satisfying about succeeding in the exact areas where someone predicted your failure. Not because you need their validation, but because it's a clear demonstration that their assessment of you was wrong and your assessment of yourself was right. This strategy is about converting doubt into determination and criticism into fuel. Think about the specific ways someone undervalued you. Maybe they said you weren't smart enough, attractive enough, talented enough, disciplined enough, or worthy enough. Maybe they doubted your dreams, dismissed your goals, or laughed at your ambitions. Those statements, painful as they were at The time can become the blueprint for your most powerful transformation. Here's how. Take each criticism or doubt they expressed and turn it into a specific goal. They said you'd never finish your degree. Make graduation your mission. They said you'd never succeed in your career. Make excellence your standard. They said you weren't attractive enough. Transform your health and presentation. They said you'd never find someone better. Build a relationship that eclipses anything you had with them. This isn't about proving them wrong for their sake. It's about proving yourself right for your own. It's about taking what they meant as a limitation and reframing it as a challenge. The Stoics understood that obstacles are not impediments to success. They are the way to success. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Their doubt stands in your way. Now make it become the way. Let me share a powerful example. Imagine someone told you that you weren't disciplined enough to stick with anything long-term. That criticism stings because part of you worries it might be true. You've started projects and abandoned them. You've set goals and fallen short. Their words echo your own inner doubts. Now you have a choice. You can let that assessment become your identity, accepting their judgment as truth. Or you can let it ignite something fierce in you, a determination to prove, primarily to yourself, that you are capable of sustained discipline. So you choose one significant goal. Maybe it's getting fit, learning a skill, building a business, or creating art, and you commit to it with relentless consistency, not publicly, not with announcements, but privately, day after day. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, you show up, you do the work, you push through resistance. 6 months later, a year later, you've transformed. Not overnight, but through accumulated daily discipline. You've become exactly what they said you'd never be. And you didn't just talk about it, you lived it. The evidence is undeniable. Now, when they see you or hear about you or check your social media, they encounter this evidence. Maybe they see your graduation photos, your business launch, your new relationship, your artistic achievement, your physical transformation. Whatever it is, it's concrete proof that their assessment was wrong. This is powerful because it's not your words against theirs anymore. It's reality. You've created a new reality through your actions, and that reality contradicts their prediction. There's no argument to be had. The facts speak for themselves. Epictetus taught, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Someone told you what you wouldn't be. Now you've said to yourself what you will be, and you've done what you had to do to become that. This is the essence of Stoic power. Control what you can, your effort, consistency, and choices, and let the results speak for themselves. But let me add an important note. This strategy is most powerful when it's intrinsically motivated. If you're only pursuing a goal to prove someone wrong, your motivation will fade when the anger fades. But if you're pursuing a goal because it represents who you genuinely want to become, their doubt is just additional fuel for a fire that was already burning. Ask yourself, what did they say I couldn't do or be that I actually do want to achieve? Not to prove them wrong, but because it aligns with my values and vision for my life. Those are the areas to focus on. Then create a plan. Break the goal into steps. Track your progress. Celebrate small wins. Build momentum. And when you inevitably hit obstacles, remember, they said you couldn't do this. Every moment you keep going is a moment you're proving them wrong and yourself right. Years from now, when you've achieved what they said was impossible, you'll look back and realize something profound. Their doubt was a gift. It gave you a clearly defined target for your transformation. It crystallized what you needed to prove, and in proving it, you became someone stronger, more capable, and more resilient than you ever would have been without that challenge. So today, identify one specific area where someone said you'd fail. Turn that area into your focus for growth. Then work, consistently and quietly, until their prediction becomes absurd in light of your reality. Strategy number 10. Forgive them, but never give them the same opportunity again. This final strategy might seem contradictory to everything we've discussed, but it's actually the culmination of Stoic wisdom. Forgiveness without foolishness. You release the resentment that poisons you, but you don't reopen the door to be undervalued again. You forgive the person, but you don't forget the lesson. Forgiveness is often misunderstood in modern culture. Many people think forgiveness means reconciliation, returning to how things were, giving the person another chance. But that's not what forgiveness is, especially not in the Stoic sense. Forgiveness is the internal release of anger and resentment for your own peace. It doesn't require you to reinvite someone into your life who has demonstrated they don't value you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like that." Holding on to resentment makes you like the person who wronged you, negative, bitter, stuck in the past. Forgiveness frees you from that. But wisdom, another Stoic virtue, tells you not to make the same mistake twice. Here's what this strategy looks like in practice. You've done the inner work. You've processed the hurt with a therapist, with trusted friends, through journaling, through time and reflection. You've reached a place where you genuinely wish this person well. You don't hope bad things happen to them. You're not carrying around active anger. You've forgiven them. But here's the key. Forgiveness doesn't mean amnesia. You remember how they treated you. You remember that when given the opportunity to value you, they didn't. You remember that their actions showed you who they were and what they were capable of. And while you've forgiven them, you have no intention of putting yourself in a position to be treated that way again. So when they come back into your life, and they often do, you're cordial, kind even, but boundaried. They may want to reconnect, to be friends again, to have access to you like they once did. Your response is warm but firm. "I appreciate you reaching out. I wish you well, but I'm not looking to reconnect at this time." If they push, if they ask for another chance, if they promise they've changed, you remain consistent. "I believe you've grown and I'm happy for you, but I've also grown, and part of that growth is being more intentional about my relationships. I'm focusing my energy on connections that have been consistently healthy for me." This isn't cruel, it's wise. You're not punishing them, you're protecting yourself. There's a profound difference. The Stoics teach us to learn from experience and adjust our behavior accordingly. If you put your hand on a hot stove and get burned, wisdom doesn't mean forgiving the stove. It means learning not to touch hot stoves. They were a hot stove. You got burned. You've forgiven the burn and learned the lesson. Now you simply don't touch that stove anymore. But let's address something important. What if they've genuinely changed? What if they're authentically apologetic and have done real work on themselves? Couldn't you give them another chance? You could, but you don't have to. Even if they've changed, even if their apology is genuine, you are under no obligation to re-enter a relationship that hurt you. Your life has moved forward. You've built new connections, new routines, new sources of fulfillment. Reopening a door to the past, even a reformed past, might not serve your present or future. That said, this is a personal decision. Stoicism values both forgiveness and wisdom, and sometimes wisdom says a relationship can be restored on new, healthier terms. If you genuinely feel that's the case, if you've seen sustained evidence of change, and if you actually want them in your life again, then you can cautiously re-engage. But it should be on your terms, with clear boundaries, and with the understanding that trust is rebuilt slowly. Most often, though, the wisest path is to forgive from a distance. You've released the resentment, you've wished them well, you've moved on. And that's enough. You don't need to be in active relationship with everyone you forgive. Forgiveness can be a private, internal act that benefits you whether or not they ever know about it. Epictetus taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." They undervalued you. That happened. Now your reaction is to forgive them for your own peace, but to wisely choose not to give them another opportunity to do it again. That's a reaction of strength, wisdom, and self-respect. Implement this today. If there's someone you've been holding resentment toward, begin the process of forgiveness. Not for them, but for you. Write them a letter you never send, expressing your hurt and then your forgiveness. Talk to a therapist. Meditate on release. Do whatever internal work helps you let go of the anger. But while you're doing that, also reinforce your boundaries. Forgiveness does not equal access. You can pray for their well-being from a distance. You can genuinely wish them a good life while keeping them out of yours. That's not hypocrisy. That's wisdom. Remember, forgiveness is for your peace. Boundaries are for your protection. You need both. Conclusion: the transformation from undervalued to unshakable. We've covered 10 powerful strategies, each rooted in Stoic philosophy and psychological truth. But before we close, I want to address something crucial. None of these strategies will work if you're doing them from a place of bitterness or with the sole goal of making someone regret their treatment of you. These strategies are most effective and most healthy when they're expressions of genuine self-worth, not performances designed to elicit a specific reaction. When you master strategic silence, disappear without announcement, succeed visibly, become unavailable, let your absence create problems, elevate your standards, build a fulfilling life, demonstrate kind indifference, thrive where they predicted failure, and forgive without reopening doors, you're not playing games. You're living authentically from a place of deep self-respect. The beautiful irony is that when you do these things for yourself, for your own growth and peace, they have maximum impact on others. Your genuine transformation is far more powerful than any calculated performance. People can sense authenticity. They can tell the difference between someone who's pretending to have moved on and someone who actually has. So yes, these strategies will likely make the person who undervalued you regret their treatment of you. They'll see what they lost. They'll recognize too late what they failed to appreciate. They'll wish they had treated you differently when they had the chance. But here's the most important thing. By the time they reach that realization, it won't matter to you anymore. That's the real victory. Not that they regret undervaluing you, but that you've become so grounded in your own worth that their regret is just an interesting footnote in a story you've already moved past. The Stoics teach us that the only sustainable source of self-worth is internal. External validation, praise, recognition, appreciation from others can be nice, but it's unstable. People's opinions shift, circumstances change. If your sense of value depends on others seeing your worth, you'll always be vulnerable to their blindness. But when you know your worth independent of anyone else's perception, when you've built your life on the solid foundation of self-knowledge, self-discipline, and virtue, you become unshakable. People can undervalue you all they want. It doesn't change your reality. You're like a diamond being appraised by someone who thinks it's glass. Their assessment is wrong, but the diamond doesn't become less valuable because of their ignorance. That's who you're becoming through these strategies. Someone whose value is intrinsic, undeniable, and completely independent of anyone else's ability to recognize it. So implement these strategies not to prove something to someone who wronged you, but to honor yourself. Do it because you deserve the peace that comes from releasing resentment. Do it because you deserve relationships that value you. Do it because you deserve to live at your highest potential. Do it because the person you were when you accepted being undervalued is not who you're meant to be. Transform, evolve, grow. Become so thoroughly yourself, so grounded in your worth, so fulfilled in your life, that the entire question of whether someone regrets undervaluing you becomes irrelevant. That's the ultimate strategy. That's the Stoic path. That's how you win. If you found value in this video, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can continue receiving content that helps you grow. Leave a comment sharing which strategy resonated most with you or how you've applied these principles in your own life. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Remember, you are strong, you are valuable, and you are worthy of relationships that recognize and honor that truth. Never settle for less, never accept being undervalued, and never forget that your greatest revenge is simply becoming the best version of yourself. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay strong, stay focused, and stay true to who you are.